Welcome to 12 Ounce Sports Radio and The Burn with Mitch Show. Here's your host, Mitch Burn.
And good evening, everybody. I just cut myself off my own name. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to 12 Ounce Sports Network. This is your host, Mitch Bernstein. I am here live on Tuesday, March 30th from lovely Philadelphia, where we had a really lovely day today. Everybody's doing okay, I hope. Thank you for being here with The Burn with Mitch. We have a great show. I apologize. Last week we had a little glitch, but that's okay. We will have those interviews that I was promising from Mark Zumoff, Malika Underwood, and Matt Gelb coming up in the near future. But tonight we have live guests, 3 live guests. I'll get to those in a minute. Hey, the sports world is buzzing. I mean, you're talking about pretty much everything going on right now except for NFL football. You got, obviously, Major League Baseball opening day is in 2 days on Thursday. Yes, we will have baseball. Yes, I'll be going to, not opening day, couldn't get tickets. Next Monday, April the 5th, I will be at Citizens Bank Park for the first time in over a year watching the Phillies play with 8,779 of my best friends, including my daughter. NBA continues to play, and lots of moves went on in the past week and a half with the trade deadline. Interesting news about the NFL today. There was a vote that was taken by the owners to approve a 17-game season for 2021. We'll be interested in the near future to hear what kind of reactions there are to that. Ncaa March Madness. It's been madness for the last week and a half. I don't know if anybody's got a perfect bracket, but if you do, you had to have some help from the NCAA gods, because who would have thought what's going on with this tournament? It's really fun to watch. The fun part about NCAA Madness, March Madness, is that you get to see these kids play who you pretty much don't know, and there's a lot of good basketball players out there, a lot of good college basketball players. It's fun to see. Tonight we get down to the Final Four in the men's, and I believe the women are already have determined who their Final Four will be. Should be some good games tonight. Will Gonzaga and Michigan have trouble with USC and UCLA? I don't know. It's a possibility. I don't think so. I think Gonzaga and Michigan have what it takes. But again, it is March Madness, so we'll see what happens. And the Masters is coming up in a week and a half. So a lot of fun things going on in the sports world for those of us who love the opportunity to watch, listen, and or play. So tonight's show is going to be primarily about Philadelphia sports. We have 3 very terrific guests coming on. Let me tell you who they are. At 6:15, Rick Soisson from the People's News. He puts out an article. I'll have to ask him when the schedule is, but I do get it. I'm on his mailing list, or he tweets it out. We'll be talking Phillies. We'll talk about some specific players, and we'll get his take on where he thinks the Phillies will finish in the division. At 6:50, we have Football Kelly, who is the entrepreneur, if you will, of Eagles. Want to get her take on the Eagles and the decision by Howie and Jeff Lurie to trade for pick number 12 and not keep their 6th pick, and other things that are going on with the Eagles. And then for you 76ers fans, this is going to be an interesting conversation. I heard Yaron Weitzman. Yaron is an author of the book Tanking to the Top, the Philadelphia 76ers and the most audacious process in the history of professional sports. So you Philly Sixers fans have been living with this process for many, many years. I've got some questions for Yaron and to ask him about it. We don't know if the process worked. Is the process still in process? I don't know. We'll talk to Yaron and we'll see what he says. So, all Philly sports fans, you should hang out with me for the next 2 hours. Get some really good information about your teams and a very unique situation that the Sixers put themselves in about 5-6 years ago. So that's our show for tonight. Just in case you wanted to make sure you were around for next, that we have a terrific show lined up next week. That is the first in April. It's April already. How can you believe that? Yes, Judy, we'll get to you in just a minute. Were my shout-outs. So April the 6th, we have Cam Perrone, who wrote a book about the Negro Leagues and Negro Leagues players. Eric Sherman, amazing author of many, many books, has a new one out in a couple of days about the Boston Red Sox and the 86 World Series and where these guys are now. And then Ellen Adair will be with us again. We'll be talking Phillies. So that's next week. Tune in for that. We'll be sending this stuff out on social media. Shout outs. I must give shout outs to several people. First, to my brother. Oops, sorry, Judy. My brother, I guess, had an accident in some way, shape, or form. Not in the car, but by himself. He ended up receiving stitches, from what we understand. Haven't talked to him yet, but I'm interested to hear how that happened. Hope the stitches are healing well, Steve, and I'm sure you'll give me the gory details later, but so he will. My sister, Jackie, is still hanging out, being retired, and doing a good job taking care of her parents. And my dad had a 93rd birthday on the 28th. We did it via Zoom. All of us all around the country were there. So happy birthday to my father, who's 93. I met a new friend, my sister's, I'm supposed to be shouting her out. So just hold on just a minute. I met a guy. We all have guys. I met a guy on vacation. He saw me with my Phillies hat or my shirt, and he says, "Yeah, go Phillies." And we started chatting. He's from Jersey, now lives in North Carolina. My new friend, Mike Matzinger. Mike, I hope you're listening. It was great to meet you, and look forward to maybe seeing you on the Curry Beach Pier in the near future. Mike is a Sixers fan, and hopefully Mike sticks around, and we'll listen to your own. And finally, my shout out to my other sister, the baby in the family. She too had a birthday on March 27th. If I give the number, she will really get angry. So, be that as it may, she's the baby of the family. Her what was a boyfriend maybe less than a week ago, Bernie, had a birthday on March 26th. Happy birthday, Bernie. And finally, Bernie and Judy, birthdays March 26th, 27th, got engaged. Woo! How about that? Oh my God. Oh yes, he's a fiancé. They're fiancé and fiancée. And Ella is the the youngest child of Judy. And Olivia, who I'm sure is not listening again, University of Maryland, she's the oldest. We all saw them, we all love them, and we're all glad that they're healthy. And happy birthday, Judy, Bernie, Dad. Happy engagement, Bernie, Judy. Happy welcome, Mike Matzinger, to the 12-Ounce Sports Network family and the Burn with Mitch show. And to my brother Steve, he will. You've grown up again, as my father used to say, you haven't grown up until you have stitches. My brother asked him, "You ever have stitches, Dad?" He says no. Ba-dum-bum. Okay, so that's those are the shout-outs. Rather lengthy, thanks to my sister who kept sending me messages that if I forgot or I was late, which I was, there would be heck to pay. So, oh well, better late than never. All right, folks, we'll be back in 2 minutes. We're going to take a little quick 2-minute break. Give me a chance to catch my breath and maybe hide from my sister. And we'll be back at 6:15 talking with Rick from the People's News talking Phillies. We will be back in 2.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Change your game with the all-new Pro Rock Hockey Stick, a Canadian company providing a top-of-the-line twig at an affordable price. Pro Rock sticks are extremely lightweight, balanced, and provide the perfect kick point. Get your fully customized stick today at ProRock.com. Play like a Pro Rock.
Welcome back. You are listening to The Burn with Mitch, your host Mitch Bernstein on 12 Ounce Sports Network. Glad you're with us. Our first guest is coming up in just a couple of minutes. We'll be talking about the Phillies. Opening day is Thursday, like I said in the intro. And this team could surprise people. A lot of us Phillies fans are hoping that they do. We all know it is a very, very tough division. Where actually I read today on ESPN there was a prediction that the Marlins make the playoffs as a wild card. Nah, I don't know that that's happening because I heard from Andre Fernandez a few weeks ago that he doesn't think they have it all together yet to do that. But we here in Philadelphia hoping that they play up to their potential. This team. My feeling is it's a solid lineup, and I'm going to ask Rick. I have one major concern, and I'm going to ask him what his thoughts are, because the lineup is solid. I mean, if these guys all play to their potential, they were the fifth highest scoring team in the National League last year, so they're going to put runs up. That wasn't a problem last year. It was the pitching. And specifically, the 7+ ERA that the bullpen had gave up blew more saves than they saved, and that's an issue. I didn't get to see a whole heck of a lot of games where the relievers were able to pitch, just wasn't available. Not a lot of my games are on TV, but in reading about it, and hearing about reports, seems like a solid bullpen. And we're going to talk to Rick right now and get his thoughts. Hello, Rick. This is Mitch. Welcome. How are you?
Okay, Mitch, how are you? Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. Hey, how excited are you? We got 2 more days to go.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people that know me think that I may not be too optimistic about some things, but I'm kind of optimistic about this team.
Yeah,
Rick,
I
think they're underrated.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I'm thinking the same thing. Just mentioning before you came on that they were the 5th highest scoring team in the league last year, and we all know about the bullpen woes. I'm looking at this lineup. I have one concern. I got one concern, and I'm going to ask you about it because he's been kind of under the radar. But altogether, I am optimistic. I really am. I mean, things would have to go the right way for them to make the playoffs in that division, especially. But I just have a feeling that things are going to go better than most people think.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Most of these people who are making predictions are saying, at best they're going to be 3rd. A lot of people have made them 4th.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at that lineup, with the exception of center field, okay, it's not exactly like you have 7 other guys who could hit 30 home runs or drive in 100 or hit 300, but you're very close to that.
Yes.
Yeah, these guys can all hit. And, a couple of minutes before, I called into you, I was just looking at the figures from spring training. And, yeah, I know. Half the guys they face are minor leaguers, but there's some impressive numbers there. The OPS numbers are very good.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they could surprise people. I have a couple of concerns.
Okay.
One of them is still the rotation.
Okay.
But I think it's because the guys that they're going to be slotting in there, theoretically, we just don't know how they'll perform here. They're both in their middle 30s.
Right.
The guys.
Chasing Matt. Right. Mm-hmm. Matt Moore and Chase
the guys at the back end.
Yeah.
Although what I saw of Anderson, he looked pretty good. I was a little less impressed with Moore, but I think I only actually saw him once.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What do you think?
I'm thinking. Well, here's the thing. Here's my concern. And let's talk about him for a moment. Rhys Hoskins. Didn't really light it up in spring training. Every time I looked at a box score, he had at least 1 strikeout for the most part. I don't know if he's ready. That's my biggest concern right now because of what I've seen him, how he's performed in spring training. Again, we didn't get to watch a lot of these guys. Not a lot of these games were televised. They're playing a couple 3 innings. What are your thoughts on Hoskins?
Well, I'm looking at the numbers actually right at the moment, and they're not good for him. I mean, for these, what's like 40 at bats roughly, but they're not good. And I've honestly always thought, well, not always, but for a while, I've thought that the guy paid too much attention to walking. I think that I had some hope that last year, he might modify that approach a little bit and, take a chance on a pitch he might not have swung at early in his career and try and hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's coming back from surgery on the one arm.
Right.
On top of that, so I don't know. Maybe it's a matter of just gaining a little strength or something. It's a little hard to tell.
It is, but it is concerning. I can't wait till Thursday. We'll get to watch him and see him. I mean, I think with Hoskins, I think it's easy to tell, especially even in the first game of the season, what he's like. If he's starting to strike out 2 out of 4 times, and he's just swinging on and missing on curveballs, and he's got a good eye. I mean, I don't necessarily like him batting in the second slot, to be honest with you. And maybe
he gets that because he walks. I guess.
Exactly right. But he's got I wish he would cut down. I'm hoping he cuts down on the swing because it is a long swing, and just make contact. That's what I mean. Do you not love Alec Boehm with his swing? I mean, is that not a great kid to watch?
Yeah, that's it's a relatively, well, he's just a tall guy. I was going to say it's a long swing, but it really isn't a long swing. He's just a tall guy.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He just has, excellent hand-eye.
Yes.
Or I guess we say eye-hand.
Eye-hand. But either way, we know what it is.
Yeah.
But he's, did you not love the way he put the ball in play when he was playing on a regular basis last season? I mean, this kid was phenomenal to watch. It was almost to me, because he wasn't hitting the ball in the ballpark as much, but it was almost like he was fresh, and the kid could hit to all fields, and he was a gap hitter. I mean, it was just fun to watch him. It was almost like wanting to watch Ryan Howard come up back when he was playing in his prime, because he could hit the ball out of the ballpark. For Boehm, he's just making contact and putting it wherever it's pitched, and that is a purist traditionalist's love,
Oh well, yeah. I mean, and it was interesting to see him, keep it up for the period he was here, and the shortened season and so on. What you have to wonder though is, could he have a sort of Hoskins-like regression?
Mm-hmm.
You remember Hoskins' first month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody's going to forget that. No. I mean, you figured, this guy's going to hit 70 home runs some season.
That
doesn't really look like that, anymore.
Right.
And so, the pitchers, I guess, are going to be studying film of this guy because it's clear he's going to be starting, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't expect him to hit 338.
No, he's not getting 338. But I honestly think, again, if he continues the way, and his attitude also seems like very, very professional, very low key, very focused on doing what he knows to be right for him, which is, basically to me just make contact, which is great.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything about him yet that would kind of bother me.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the greatest fielder, but I mean, he looks like he will probably get better.
Yeah, I think
once he's used to the the major league pace, and he learns the hitters and so on and so forth. But I mean, he's there for the bat.
Yeah, he is.
And that's fine. That's fine. He'll get better in the field, I suppose. They're going to score some runs. I mean, where they come from, I'm not sure. I mean, everybody would say Harper. I would say Thursday is going to be interesting because you're going to see 3 guys that, I figure are the keys, to where this team actually goes in Ncaa, Gregorius, and Real Muto.
Mm-hmm.
Not Harper. I don't want to talk about him. If you could get Ncaa to repeat something like his year in 18,
mm-hmm.
You get Real Muto to repeat something like 19.
Yes.
And Gregorius, what he did last season, you know, I mean, Harper doesn't have to drive in 130.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I think that, you know, now, of course, you know, obviously those three guys didn't do that all in the same season.
Right.
You know, their best years recently, but I tell you what the pleasant surprise for me was last year was Gregorius.
Yes.
You know, I didn't pay that much attention to him when he was on the Yankees, and you know, you'd see him every now and then. You know, if you caught a Yankees broadcast, that this guy's a very good player, and you know, I just think he's very important. Now, he also did not do that well in terms of hitting in spring training.
Right.
But you know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Practice.
And I'm wondering. It's so funny because typically the Phillies don't get off to a hot start, and they're playing Atlanta, and people are going to be hyped up. I'm hoping you're thinking they're going to be hyped up because this division is not going to be easy, and who knows if they're even going to. They could win 89 games and not make the wild card. Because of you got the Dodgers and you got the Padres and you got the other four teams in this division that could possibly win another wild card.
I think my gut tells me people are awarding the Padres the wild card, a wild card. I want to see them do it.
Okay.
I mean, everybody seems to question the Phillies. Yeah, I want to see the Padres do it.
Yeah.
Now, Tatis is a wonderful talent, but let's see the team do it.
Right.
In any event. Anyway, what do you think about the rotation?
Well, I'm thinking, listen, again, number 3, Eflin, if he had a decent spring.
He did.
Wheeler wasn't so, but if you look overall at the numbers, they did well. I liked what I did see from Chase Anderson in terms of numbers. They had to get a lefty and Matt Moore. They're experienced. JT will help them as the catcher in terms of because he not only can play. Can catch and throw runners out, but he can handle these pitchers, and I think that's what these guys love about throwing to him.
He's as close as you're going to get in the modern game to somebody like Bench.
Yes,
it seems to me. I mean, not quite as much power, but in every other regard.
Oh my gosh!
He's a terrific player.
He's terrific.
I mean, I really did not think they were going to bring him back.
Yeah, I did. I was as things went down during the winter, and once the Mets signed McCann, I was like, okay, there's nowhere else for him to go. I don't think anybody's going to want to spend the money. And as obviously as it turned out, the Phillies did because they knew and everybody knew, and Harper was bugging the crap out of Middleton, right, and saying sign him. I mean. They're gonna, how much influence does a player have? And I've talked to some other folks on the show here, and they said, you'd be surprised. I mean, if Harper wants him, he's going to go to the guy and say, "Listen, whatever we need to do, let's sign him." So they got him.
Well, Middleton's on the hot seat, as it were, for quite a lot of money for Harper. So it's kind of silly to think that he wouldn't listen to him.
That's true.
It's like, I'm going to pay you $300 million, but I really don't need any input. I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But you're absolutely right, it seems to me. Once you had McCann in New York, then the sort of from that point on, I started to think, well, the longer this goes on, the more likely it is they're going to get him.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I don't think they knew for sure that they were going to actually get him. So they were kind of setting things up,
Right.
Into public statements.
Yes.
To get people ready, just in case.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're dead on.
Yeah.
I think they were quiet for a long time. And then, after, what was it? It was like middle of January. Things didn't start to roll until then. And then
Right.
things happened. And then when Ncaa went, I'm thinking, okay, this just might happen. And then all the talk started about, hey, where else could he go? Who can afford him? Who really needs him? And I was like, I don't know that he's not going to sign here. And he did. Let me get to two more things. Let me get to two more people, specifically.
Okay.
Odubel.
Okay.
Odubel is not...
Odubel.
Yes. Do you think... Now, he did not bat. He started off... He hit more home runs than anybody this spring training.
Right. Yeah.
But he ended up with a 236 average, is what I believe.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to wonder, what if that batting average was 270? Would he be in the starting lineup?
Well, it is an interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting question. That would have made things a lot more difficult.
Yes.
In terms of that decision. But as I said, I was glancing at the numbers here, and Hazley had very small sample size, but he actually hit better than that. In terms of average. I mean, nobody pays attention to average anymore, but he did. I think a kind of possibly more intriguing question is, are we going to see Odubel at all?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Because,
Joe Girardi seems to think it's a possibility. I mean, he may just be letting people know that, and the MLB Players Association know that, because I guess you have to have a reason. He said Odubel did his
a
90
baseball
days,
reason,
right? His suspension. He did his duty, but and he's not going to. He said they're not going to listen to the public, and we know what the public says, and they don't want an abuser, domestic violence, even though the charges were dropped. They don't want somebody like that on their team. But what happens? I mean, listen. Hazley has a hammy, right? Quinn goes in. He's not playing well. Odubel's hitting pretty well. He's going to come up.
He may. I don't think we actually, know on that. But, Quinn could tear a hamstring walking to the kitchen.
Yes.
I mean, it's just his history. I mean, all things equal, I would give Quinn that job, but they're not. The guy's fragile.
Yeah.
Personally, I would like to see Hazley get the job and keep the job.
Yeah.
But they're going to platoon. And I mean, that, given what happened in the spring, I don't think they could do anything but that.
Right. Exactly. I think it's going to be, all right, guys, here's what's going on. Get in the cage. Get in the cage, whenever you can, and just stay focused, because if we got a righty pitching, Hazley's playing, and if a righty's pitching, Quinn, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I just hope, again, they stay healthy. That's the most important thing. I mean, I worry about that hammy with Hazley. Him running out into left center, right center field after a ball, and the next thing you know, boom. Okay, so Quinn goes in. Hazley's then down for 8 weeks, whatever it is, and you got to bring up Odubel, which I'm okay with. I mean, this is the way it is. You got to bring somebody in, because they're not going to put Brad Miller in there on a regular basis, or Matt Joyce, or this kid.
Well, Miller got a lot of playing time with St. Louis last year.
He did.
He kind of turned into a regular. Was Hazley a groin? I think
it was a groin. Yeah, not hammy. It was a groin, which is even worse.
Yeah.
Which is even worse, because that's harder to heal.
Yeah. It definitely can be. But you had one other question, I guess.
Yes. Right move for me, at least, to send Kingery down. This kid is all screwed up.
We could probably talk an hour about what went wrong there. I mean, and I think 90% of it is on Philly's management, some of which is gone, and maybe 10% was on his infection with COVID.
Yeah.
But I've never liked the whole super utility player idea.
No, I don't
mean,
either.
when you think of it, when you think, I mean, that, I'm an old guy, but it's sort of like, how many of them have really turned in super years? I mean, it was Josh Harrison about 6 or 7 years ago in Pittsburgh.
Right.
I think he made it. I think he made the All-Star team somehow. As a utility man, but it doesn't work out. It doesn't seem to work out.
No, I think you have to have the right mindset. Number one, I don't think Kingery has that. And listen, everybody wants to. And who knows what a player like Kingery thinks. Again, going back to the mindset of, okay, I'm playing second base today, I'm playing center field, I'm playing shortstop. I mean, it's got to be. Listen, anybody likes to say, you have to want to play the same position all the time. It's your comfort zone. But I just don't think. I think the main thing with hitting. Okay, so you give him COVID, but beyond COVID, at the end of the day, he still. It was as if he was just up there waving the bat. I mean, he had no clue. Now, and if you have no clue, why can't you go back to the basics? Yeah. Go back to the basics. Just try and make contact. Rick, he wasn't even doing that. He couldn't make contact. The swing got way too long, and I mean, first of all, no matter how strong the kid is, I mean, he's not that big. There's no reason he should be trying to hit it out of the park. Exactly.
Almost ever.
Yeah.
Hit it in the alleys. So we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe what they think that he's going to be playing every day without the pressure, for a while in Lehigh Valley. Maybe it'll work. I don't have a lot of faith in it.
You know what? You just took the words right out of my mouth. Honestly, my prediction is he never gets back to the major leagues. I think his head is so screwed up that I just get the feeling. I obviously don't know the guy, but from the way he's spoken, he doesn't seem like he's very. I hate to say it, very intelligent. I just don't know if he knows how to figure it out. And that takes a bit of intelligence. That takes a bit of help. I don't think he's grown mature enough to be able to figure that out on his own. And as a result, he never makes it back.
I think the size of the contract handicapped him too. I mean, that had to be in his head. I mean, the first thing Philadelphians are going to pick up on is they gave this guy $26 million before he even had an at-bat.
That's exactly right. Yep.
I mean, that might fly, in Pittsburgh or Kansas City. That doesn't fly in Philadelphia. So yeah, I wish him well, but it's not that difficult a concept. Make contact.
Make contact.
It's
just that simple,
if they shift on you, learn to hit the other way. Blah blah.
All that stuff, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Our historically bad bullpen last year has become better, which is really good, right?
On paper.
True.
Yeah.
True.
They have. They can't
knock on wood, right?
Yeah. They can't possibly be as bad as last year's group. I think that looks positive. It was interesting to see Alvarado kind of lose his focus there in that one game near the end.
Yeah,
that was kind of a mess. But he had been doing very well.
Yes.
Which is apparently not his track record. in terms of control and so on. But, we'll see. And I think, and Bradley's an important, nice piece. I think.
Yes. He's going to be the key. I bring up Hector Neris' name, and I just don't have any confidence in him whatsoever that he's going to be consistent. He can do it, but he's not been consistent. So I think if you take the closer role away from him, and he can just throw that splitter down and away in the 7th or 8th inning, and then maybe run that fastball, that 95 fastball, I think he's got a shot. I mean, did he say he was also developing a changeup? Was that Neris?
I thought it was a slider, but it could be a changeup.
Maybe, yeah, okay.
Just some kind of third pitch that you can lean on.
Yes.
I'd have to go back and check what I saw on that, but when Neris is on, Neris is good.
Yes.
But there was only 1 year of Brad Lidge ever. So
oh my gosh, what are we?
You're not gonna get that out of any of them in all likelihood. But I think, assuming everybody stays healthy, they have a better chance than most people are giving them.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Rick. I mean, I think if they stay healthy, for the most part, I think that the playoff possibility is based on that with all the other teams in the division. If somebody goes down on some of these teams, key positions, that's when the other team must say, okay, well, guess what, folks? We got to step it up. This is our chance. With the rotation, Nola, Wheeler, Eflin, Anderson, again, that's pretty solid, the top three, if Eflin can continue what he's done. I do like the bench. Matt Joyce played well. Quinn, Brad Miller, yes. Ronald Torres. Torres hit well, I think, in spring training, didn't he? He's a good little piece.
I think he actually did have reasonable numbers.
So,
and he's apparently he was a 250. They say he's a very good clubhouse presence. And Girardi likes him.
Yes. Yeah.
He
played with him.
He played for him, and from what I can see, he's. I would have kept him. Well, clearly you would keep him over Kingery just based on performance, but
right. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see if Joyce can keep up.
I hope he does, because he's the Jay Bruce this year, right, off the bench.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
hopefully, it works out. Again, you and I are on the same ilk. We're optimistic, based on the lineup, based on the revamped bullpen, based on the way these guys can hit the ball. Their defense has to improve. We all know that too, and that's the other big issue. They were terrible last year, and hopefully that won't be a big issue this year. They got to stop throwing the ball around and make good plays and be smart out in that field, so that the ball doesn't fly and they give up too many unearned runs.
Well, not that one thing has anything to do with the other, but sort of the last time they had a team that was really able to hit and a somewhat weaker pitching staff, Lidge accepted, they won the World Series.
Mm-hmm.
This rotation is better than the 08 rotation.
But the 08 rotation did what they had to do. They really stepped up.
Yeah, they did. They did. But if you were talking about them, at this point, that many years ago, you would not say, we've got the rotation that's going to win it.
Right.
Nobody was going to say that.
Especially about Joe Bryant.
It's all, and it's all speculative.
Oh, it is. It is. And that's the fun part. You know, we get to
Yeah.
speculate and think, and look forward to knock on wood, a full season. I'm going Monday night, so I can't wait. Parking is not going to be an issue. Crowds aren't going to be an issue, so that's not bad.
Getting out of the parking lot.
I know, Rick. It's going to be a little bit easier, not as stressful. But they just said you can only come in. They're only letting the gates open an hour beforehand. There will be Ashburn Alley will be open. Everything's contactless. You can bring a Wawa bag with food in it and a drink, which is nice. Other than that, just one bag. You know,
That's reasonable. Yeah.
You won't have to unload your keys or your cell phone through the detectors. They're just trying to make that a little bit easier. So you got to wear your mask except when you're eating. So I'm looking forward next Monday. Next Monday's forecast, Rick, 65 degrees during the day. So I'm happy.
There you go.
Yes.
I envy you. I don't have any tickets yet.
Not yet. Okay, well, you'll get down there, right?
I think I will. You know, I will at some point. But, you know, probably I sort of stopped going in April myself years ago because I just got frozen too many times. But,
April can be bad, yes. It's too cold down there.
Yeah. But, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens.
All right, well, listen, Rick from the People's News, great information.
Yeah.
Great information.
And call to the pen.
And call to the pen. That's right. And call to the pen. I appreciate you coming on, giving me some insight and some really good Phillies conversation, Rick. And
all right.
Let's go Phillies. And we will hopefully maybe we'll talk again sometime down the road.
Okay, Mitch. Sounds good.
All right,
Sounds
Rick.
good.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Appreciate it. Have a great night.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So we were on the same page, pretty much. So we'll see what happens. You know, you can speculate as much as you want. And, you know, 2 games, 3 games does not a season make in this baseball marathon. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they come out and play Thursday. And over the weekend, they got the Braves, and then they got the Mets coming in. So division games right off the bat. You know, I'd be happy with 500, 3-3 over those 6 games. So let's see what happens. I'd like to see the pitchers go 6 if they can. Be awesome. See what the bullpen can do, and let's see. You know, I would like to see a bomb on Monday night. Let's see these guys make some contact, hit the ball out of the park, and win a game. So we will see what happens. Baseball season is starting on Thursday. Hallelujah. So looking forward to it. Sunday Night Baseball, all sorts of stuff happening that we can watch now, which is all good. All right, we are going to switch gears now to football and those Philadelphia Eagles. And not really much happening. I'll ask Kelly if she's been busy with the Eagles. You know, kind of quiet these days. Not much going on. And here she comes right now. Hello, Football Kelly. This is Mitch. How are you?
Hey, Mitch. What's going on?
How you been?
There's a quiet moment with the Eagles this offseason, so I've been busy.
I was just making a comment saying facetiously, yeah, not much going on with this team this year. But in my notes, you know what I said next to my Eagles? Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. That's for sure.
Oh my gosh, Kelly, can you believe what's gone on with this team ever since the season ended? It's a circus.
It's hard to even really pinpoint all of the crazy things that have happened, I'm probably like thinking of everything that happened and missing a big one because of the handful of things that have gone down over the course of time since the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely in the thick of rebuilding this team. So I think the complacency is not there at all with this front office and their approach to it. So I guess we should be happy about that, but it'll take a lot of good decision making to make sure that that is the case going forward.
All right, well, we're going to get into that decision making in a little bit.
Sure.
A lot of us have questions about that. But let's backtrack and talk about Carson for a minute. In your opinion, and what you have heard, the right move for him and the Eagles to part ways?
So, I mean, I don't have any sources on my own, but just from everything we've heard from the reporting internally, from the ESPN reporters and all the beat reporters in Philadelphia, it seems pretty obvious that he wanted out. His agent was the one that was kind of pushing things to get to that point. I think Howie Roseman referenced that when he had his press conference after the trade went down, that the agent of Carson Wentz went to the team and said, he would really like a fresh start. And then we heard from Carson Wentz himself on the Pat McAfee show because, the press conferences, you never get a solid answer out of most people. But
right.
Pat did a great job kind of warming him up, getting him comfortable, and asking him some of those tough questions just to kind of give some clarity to so many people who have supported him in his time in Philadelphia, like what happened, And Carson basically said, after being benched in that Green Bay Packers game, he started looking around like maybe this isn't it. So that's not the type of mentality that we want in our quarterback anyway. I was a huge Carson Wentz supporter. I believe that there is context to his bad play. I didn't think that he was the reason that he was being benched necessarily. I think he was definitely a contributor to why he was benched.
Right.
But the team needed a different spark, and I don't think it was the wrong decision for, Peterson to decide to put Hurts in for the remainder of the season. And we did see that spark. I mean, in that Packers game, if the defense didn't bail on covering that, I think it was an Aaron Jones, 70-something yard touchdown, we could have, made it a competitive game again.
Yes.
And that's pretty shocking because, we made the decision to bench Carson, and Jalen Hurts, went down the field, scored a touchdown, first pass in his career to Greg Ward, and brought the team back in some ways. But again, you just saw that the roster wasn't all there, all the pieces, all the injuries really made it so that, Wayne Collin was not a quarterback stat this season by any measure.
Mm-hmm.
But, Carson Wentz, didn't really take full ownership of the mistakes that he was contributing to the downfall of this season. And if you can't win in the worst historical division, and you're really the only true quarterback, in my opinion, that was playing at that point because Dak Prescott was injured
mm-hmm.
and Daniel Jones wasn't much, and we weren't seeing a ton of big plays from Alex Smith. But if Carson Wentz is the $100 million quarterback in this division, he should be able to elevate some guys. He should be able to get some wins. We were the worst team in the historically bad NFC East this year. So that just goes to show that the roster was all a mess, and we are desperate to have some change now because, Carson isn't here anymore. I certainly think that the Eagles could have done better by him, but he could have done better by us after truly looking at the full picture and everything that has been put out there so far.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's a two-way street. We never expected Carson to play as bad as he did. And at some point, because we all saw what happened in that Super Bowl year. Right, Kelly?
Right.
I mean,
it's undeniable.
This kid had so much talent It's amazing, and it's like Kelly. Did you play sports at all?
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
what do you play? I'm trying.
So, I mean, all growing up, I was playing basketball, I was playing softball, I was doing crew in high school on the Schuylkill River, So all team sports, very, team-centered. And the thing that you mentioned about how special he was in 2017, I still think he can be special.
Oh, I do too, yes.
I just don't know if it ever would have translated here ever after he felt that way. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. We're either going to see him succeed elsewhere, or he wouldn't have succeeded here.
Right.
It was a shame.
Yeah. So my point about the sports things was, you knew when you were playing basketball or softball. Let's just put those two. Take those two. You had talent, right? And
minimally,
you go into a slump. Okay, but there's a point at which you pretty much know what you're doing wrong and you try and get it back. All right.
Yeah.
And I always use the example of golf. I haven't played golf in 10 years, but when I was playing, and I'm going to get back to it, there was always, when I was shooting in over 100, and I got it down to 90s, which is obviously it's amateur stuff. But I knew when I was playing, shooting 100, I would always have that one drive on one of those holes. Like, oh my God, that's in there somewhere. My pitching wedge was like, holy crap. Okay, so it's in my body somewhere. So we all knew Carson had it in him, but to not be able to, improve and figure it out for an entire 12 games, that I think is what surprised all of us, didn't it? I think that's what it is.
I mean, it's hard to adjust when the O-line was rotating as frequently as it had been. And I think we saw Jalen Hurts kind of overcompensating for their lack of ability in front of him by using his legs.
Yes.
Wentz doesn't have the athletic ability that Jalen Hurts does, at least post ACL injury.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a shame. You really would like to have seen him make less mistakes. I think that Jimmy Kimsky from Philly Voice did an article after the season was over saying that, there were so many sacks during the season. I think there was like 60-plus sacks during the season, not just Carson, but Jalen Hurts was sacked as well numerous times. And he assigned blame to each sack. And I believe that he said 13.5 of those sacks were assigned to Carson Wentz.
Right. Yeah, I think I heard that too. Yeah.
That's the amount of sacks that some quarterbacks get hit in the league, if they have a decent O-line.
Right.
But, if you're at fault for 13, throw the ball away. I felt like I said that the whole season. What are you seeing out there? I mean, there was the one play against the Cowboys that I'm sure a lot of people recall where he was just looking downfield and just didn't see the defender coming at him directly at all while he was running. And I'm not a quarterback. I know that, people who don't play the sport shouldn't be as critical as others who know how complex that can be as a play. But you see the awareness of other quarterbacks in that moment. Say, I'm going to throw this ball away. I don't have an option right now. And that would have been perfectly acceptable. But when you take a huge loss in yardage, when you don't advance the ball anymore, or you just don't live to see another down.
Correct.
It's kind of crazy to see that kind of mistake continuously all season from a veteran at this point. He's 5 years in.
Yep.
You can expect to see those mistakes from a rookie. You shouldn't want to see that from a guy that just got paid big money. He should be smarter with the ball.
Kelly, it was, again, we all saw the same thing. It was just, and every week, weren't you watching like, okay, every week, he can't be this bad again. Because we saw he has the ability.
Yes.
But
we always thought that he was going to recover.
Yes. every
week
week.
we had some hope.
Yes, we did.
And I think we wanted him to succeed here
Absolutely.
too after the season was over. If he was going to be the quarterback next year, everybody would have had very strong confidence in Sirianni and the coaching staff to come in and try to tailor the offense to him, and we would have been completely behind Carson Wentz another season. Just, that's not how it worked out, but I fully believe that it won't be shocking to most people in Philadelphia if he is very good in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right. I mean, as badly, and we know how all of the Philly fans in every sport are, so we're all so passionate. Giving him another chance would have been something that we would have said, okay, let's see what this new regime can do for him. He will need to adapt and adjust, and he's a smart kid, and he should be able to do that. But there was a point at which, again, at the end of the season, he gets pulled, he sees all the crap happening, and it's like, I don't want to stay here anymore. This is ridiculous, Which leads me to, I'm trying to think of where I should go with this. Let's go to Doug.
Okay.
So, you talk about BS in press conferences, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of coaches we only see who we see. I'm doing a good job play calling. Doug sucked this year play calling, and I think
he
saw
wasn't great.
I mean, it was just like, would you run the ball? Would you throw a play action pass? Would you throw a screen? What are you doing, Doug? So I think at the end of the year. And this is
he didn't have much situational awareness. Like going forward on fourth down was
too much,
becoming a huge head scratcher for fans.
Yep.
Like, okay, I know it worked in 2017, and you're starting to just be overly confident, but the offense wasn't moving.
Right.
Don't be fooled into thinking, oh, we're going to get a spark here from this fourth down conversion. I mean, some of the decisions in the game were like, do you know how bad our defense is? Why would you put them in this position? Even the kick against the Bengals that people still applaud, like, oh, if we didn't have that tie, we wouldn't be in the playoffs. I mean, I just hate settling for a tie. I want you to go for the win. I just want to see you go for the win. I think most Philadelphians have that mentality. And so, I mean, I love Doug. He brought us a Super Bowl. I wasn't super surprised when they said that he was being fired because it kind of seemed like it was written all over the walls. Maybe it was the personnel standpoint. He didn't have the right guys around him. He saw what he could do when he had Reich and other people in the building that ended up leaving after the Super Bowl season. But it was just not making sense to me on Sundays, and it clearly wasn't making sense to Jeffrey Lurie.
Yeah. So here's my thought. A lot of people haven't mentioned this, and I want to get your thoughts. So when he put Jalen in, it seemed like it was a surprise, though I did hear after the fact that some players knew that he was going to be coming in. Or no, not Hurts. What's his name? Third stringer.
Sudfeld
was going to come in, and some guys knew, some guys didn't. Oh, I wanted to get him. Well, what are you talking about? Are you trying to win a freaking game? What are you doing? So my thought is that, the communicate at that point, he lost all respect for those players who he didn't tell. And that's one of the reasons why he got fired. Maybe in addition to the fact that he told Jeffrey he wanted this guy to come play or play this, or this guy to help me as an assistant, and Lurie was like, that ain't happening. But to me, if he and I said to my wife, I said, if they didn't know, who wants a guy now that you've lost the respect of half of your team and didn't communicate this? He's going to get fired for this. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seemed to me that the decision to pull Jalen Hurts probably came from higher than Doug at that point. Like, let's get the lowest draft pick we can mentality for the front office, and Doug just kind of went with it. But you're right. Like, if he didn't communicate it well enough, then he might have lost a lot of respect. And for me, it's it was interesting to watch the sideline of that game, just to like see how they were all interacting. And I was watching the sideline as much as I could during most of the games. They didn't show it a ton of times, but since we weren't at the games, you know, with the pandemic and everything, it was something that I was really curious to see. Like, what's the chemistry like? What is the locker room environment like in this terrible season? Like, how are they all interacting with each other? It's like the kind of thing behind the curtain that we weren't really getting a full tell on. So for me, it was interesting to see how Jalen Hurts reacted. He seemed very upset, and he's a competitor. Like, he wanted that opportunity to show what he could do, and he has every right to be upset that he wanted to be able to finish out the game, win or lose. And yes, I think that a lot of people who, you know, try to explain pulling him as, you know, he wasn't having a great game anyway. Yeah, sure. I mean, he wasn't playing great, but I think that's the thing about being a rookie quarterback. He wanted the experience. I mean, he had no preseason games.
Right.
His preseason started in Green Bay. You know, like he was in live action for first NFL, you know, start of his career, and it wasn't even a preseason game, and that's very unusual for most rookie quarterbacks. They at least have that option.
Right, exactly.
To show off what they can do. So it was even greater of an importance for him to be able to finish out a game that maybe he was struggling in, because he didn't have a great game against the Cowboys. We lost out on the playoffs, obviously, in that loss. And I think that, you know, him being frustrated was a combination of all those things, and not necessarily not being able to finish the game, because I think a lot of the guys knew, like, look, it's a lost season at this point. We're not making the playoffs regardless. But, you know, they were playing hard and trying to finish out the season strong on a good note if they could. And obviously that wasn't in the cards for what Doug wanted to do, or whoever decided to make that call.
Yeah. So here's the biggest question right now for you, Football Kelly. What did you think of Howie's move last week?
The trade back.
Pardon?
The trade back.
Yes.
Okay, so my initial reaction was absolute shock. I think a lot of fans were completely shocked by that. Not maybe trading back, because I think a lot of fans were like, well, we could get a lot of assets with this, you know, high up pick, you know, and we have so many roster holes. I think a lot of fans were thinking, oh, we might have the potential to trade back at some point. But I didn't think that we would be doing that, like making that call a month before the draft.
Early,
a lot can happen between now and the draft. So, you know, April 29th, when they start calling out the names and they say, you know, a bunch of people that we didn't necessarily want to take at the top of the board, and then 6 comes around and the Dolphins get the guy that we had highly rated on our board, was it really worth it giving up, you know, that pick for assets down the line? And some people will argue yes, some people will argue no. I think it's too soon to say, but I do know that it is an interesting move. I think that it suggests that the door is open for the possibility that Jalen Hurts will get a prove-it season, and if he doesn't do well, and maybe it might be because the team isn't doing, you know, the right things to support him, much like what we saw with Carson Wentz, not having the right talent around him to do what he needs to do. And that could definitely be an argument, and I totally understand it. But if they say, you know, we're going to do what we can to build around Jalen Hurts for a year and maybe get him a weapon at 12 and, you know, see what he can do. If he ends up not being the guy, the optimistic view is, well, you know, we then have potentially 3 first-round picks next year if Carson is able to provide enough snaps to the Colts and help us out there. So, you know, that's a nice package deal for a team. You know, even if it's not to trade up in the draft, you know, Russell Wilson is currently a trade rumor mill. There are other guys around the league that you could point to at the end of their career potentially in their respective teams, and you could package some kind of offering to them for the quarterback if we really felt we were in a good place. Now, I don't think that we're a quarterback away by any stretch, but you have some flexibility and some options there that would make sense to a team that is in a rebuild. So as long as we're all under the assumption that, this is to get a robust amount of options at this draft class, 11 picks is the most in the NFL.
Yeah.
Across the league, we have the most draft picks, so we could do a lot with that. We could be incredibly aggressive and move up for players if we really felt that somebody was there that we really needed to add to our roster. And otherwise, we have a huge amount of bites at the apple, as a lot of people like to suggest. So more options, more chances to get a big player or a potential Pro Bowler. So I'm going to stay positive and say, even though it's not what I would have anticipated happening, after sleeping on it and really kind of talking to other fans about it, you sort of understand the mentality of the front office that maybe, the 49ers wanted to move up for a quarterback. We weren't in a position to get a quarterback that we felt would be overly more talented than what we have in Jalen Hurts already. Give him a chance. See what he has. And if that isn't the case, if he really struggles next year, you have a potential option in the first round next year to really make an impact move.
Yeah, it was interesting when I read it and saw it. I'm thinking, what the hell are they doing? And again, like you said, I think 90% of the people were like, "What are you doing? Howie, what are you thinking?" And I read some beat writers' thoughts that they, like you did, slept on it and said, "Okay, well, maybe you're stockpiling a lot of draft picks with another potential number one if Carson, like you said, gets those 70% of the snaps." So yeah, it does give them a lot more flexibility going in with options. My only issue, and I think a lot of people feel this way too, you're pretty much going to pick a sure thing. It's hard to screw up number 1 through 6 or even 10. Okay? Yeah. And with Howie's history, and some people argue with me last couple of weeks ago, even somebody on Twitter. But listen, let's look at Howie's history. I mean, how many draft picks have really been Pro Bowl players in the past several years?
Yeah, I mean, there aren't many, but, as a person who likes to be difficult, Fletcher Cox was the 12th pick overall in his draft. And, there's going to be at least 3 quarterbacks going in the top 10. That leaves, the Eagles feeling comfortable that there's going to be a player from the board that they have that's not too far off from what they were going to get at 6. I mean, that's at least how I read it.
But are you gonna sacrifice? And again, we don't know. Carson's never going to admit, and I heard him say this, that it didn't affect him that they drafted Hurts. But are we gonna have the Eagles take another chance on getting in a player's head by drafting another quarterback when he's only had a year to play or 6 games?
I hope not.
I mean,
I really, really hope not.
I mean, these guys have to. Howie and Jeff, I mean, they're playing with these kids' heads. These are kids. They're kind of fragile. Yeah, toughen up. It's the NFL. But listen, people are people. They have feelings. And, was Carson strong enough to... He said he was, but unless you get a sports psychologist to sit down with him and analyze him, you're never going to figure it out where he's going to come up with an answer. He said, yeah, Carson, based on my analysis, Carson was a little perturbed that they picked Jalen Hurts. You're never going to find that out. They're never going to admit it.
Right.
But just as a human being, It's got to put a question in your head. Somebody comes around and, you at any job and they hire somebody, in a situation. I mean, I kind of was in a situation like this where a place of work and they hired somebody without me knowing it. I'm looking behind my back. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on here? What is this guy doing here? And soon to
it suggests to me that we're us not moving up in the draft and moving backwards. I mean, even if we just stayed at 6, I would say maybe quarterback is still in play, but trading backwards suggests to me that quarterback is not really the option that they are looking at for this draft. And that's why I feel like it's kind of opening the door to, they're going to say it's a quarterback competition with Hurts and Flacco, but Flacco really got a backup contract. So as much as they want to hype up competition, I'm not buying that. Like, I think it's truly a Jalen Hurts opportunity season in a year when they say, look, we're rebuilding anyway. Let's see what we have.
Right.
I mean, the fans are not going to like losing. So if Jalen can pull out a few wins, make a few plays, show some flashes, even in the context of maybe a bad roster, who knows? I mean, that might be enough to just prove that he could be the guy, and then you have the flexibility now. If he proves to be the guy, that's the best case scenario because you have him on the team on his rookie deal, and you have 3 first-round picks you can do what you want with.
Right.
I mean, really take the guys that aren't quarterbacks and not have to use that valuable capital on trading up or otherwise trading it away.
Yeah. Listen, like you said, the quarterback doesn't succeed. If you watch Tom Brady, in the playoffs, I mean, they protected, they knew going in, when he signed with them, he knew they had a great offensive line. He didn't get touched. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. I will say, I'm praying that this next season we have, even half of what the injuries were in the 2020 season. I mean, we were constantly dealing with injuries if they were even 1 week or 2 weeks of a player being out or just being on IR. I feel like our IR list was incredibly long. It was like a CVS receipt. It was.
So if we're being honest, if that can be cut in half with the Sirianni system, if the strength and conditioning coaches can get these guys right before the season starts with, a real preseason. I think we're going to have a preseason this year, assuming that everything kind of gets back to normal in some ways. Then, it would be an ideal situation for Hurts because I do think that Brooks is talented. I do think Johnson is talented. I think Kelsey is probably the best center that we've ever had on the team. And, the guys on the left-hand side of the line are younger, but I think that they could establish themselves and become that level of player. So, if we're able to stay healthy on the line specifically, that would be huge for a player. And it wouldn't give Hurts a lot of excuses. If he was struggling behind a good O-line, people that we have seen, protect so many quarterbacks before him, it'll be interesting to see how people decide whether or not he's proving that he could be the quarterback next year if he does in fact get the start.
I mean, from what we saw, yes, and I love the league. These young quarterbacks who can run now. It's so much fun to watch these guys, right? So Jalen is that guy. I mean, he can be that guy. So with that said, who would you think, if you had the ability to be in that room on draft day at number 12, let's assume they're going to stay at 12. Let's assume they stay at 12. Who would you pick? I mean, what position would you go after first?
So I've tried to do mock drafts to get a sense of who would be there at 12, and it kind of changes per attempt. So I'm not fully committed to this because I think that there's potential the guy could go ahead of when we select.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. He already has great rapport with Hurts from his time in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a fast start to a connection with a top-tier wide receiver.
Yep.
And if he wasn't able to prove that he was able to have success with his own guy, somebody that he has gone on the record and said was probably one of the most talented wide receivers he's worked with, and he worked with a ton of talented wide receivers in his college career, then that kind of says, okay, then he's not the problem, you're the problem. So if Jalen Waddle is there at 12, I would say that he makes sense because of the speed he has, his ability to create open space.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would make sense for Sirianni. And it would be interesting to see him and Rager. I think they would complement each other well in the core. I know that a lot of people have written off Rager, but it's too soon to say that, guys. Fans are passionate, but at the end of the day, he has a lot more years left in this league, and I think being banged up a little bit didn't help very much with his case. But, you see him and Jalen Hurts are already out working together and trying to create something, and it's very telling that Jalen Hurts is just taking on that ownership.
Yes.
A lot of people are asking, is he going to be the guy? Is he not going to be the guy? He's just saying, I'm the guy. Like, I'm just going to take it on. I'm going to take on the challenge, whether you think I deserve it or not. And he's getting, that time in with the wide receivers this offseason, and you just love to see that as a person who wants to see the Eagles have long-term success. And it starts with the offseason and the ability to work on your craft. And we're seeing that from Jalen Hurts, even in his young career. So good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're showing him at different clips at the different times. He's showing his dedication. He is showing people that he does want to succeed. And listen,
he's showing Eagles fans that he wants to be the guy.
Yes,
and,
you're right.
We've been begging Carson Wentz to be the guy for a while now, so that's refreshing.
That's a plus. Exactly right. What was I going to say? I lost it. Oh, you know what? Wouldn't it be nice to get a player from one of the top tier teams in college football for once? Get somebody from Alabama, for crying out loud.
I mean, they put out a really solid professional football player.
Yes.
Say that.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those things.
I think Nick Saban knows what he's doing over there.
You think?
I don't know.
You think? And it's like, basketball. Hello, Duke. Not necessarily this year, but obviously in the past. Duke and North Carolina. I think you're going to get a decent player if you pick somebody from one of those two schools. And there are others out there, obviously. But, come on. It's almost too obvious. All right, one last thing I want to talk to you about is, what are your thoughts about the new coach? What have you read about? What do you think?
So Sirianni hasn't been super available, obviously, with the pandemic and everything, like we would have normally seen at the Combine, him do a press conference and all that. But we did hear from him after the trade with Carson Wentz. And it's hard to get a read on a press conference,
It is.
But he is an interesting prospect for a head coach because he comes with this wide receiver background, and that's kind of unusual. I feel like we see a lot of coach, quarterback type people, but the best friend of a quarterback is the wide receiver, and we saw Sirianni in Indiana working with Jacoby Brissett, Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers, and so not any of them are alike, as a quarterback style of play and all of that. So he's already had the challenge of having to work with Frank Reich to tailor an offense to who he has in the room. so that is something that's intriguing. I think that he's looking at this from a perspective of, okay, I have Jalen Hurts, I have Joe Flacco. How can I create a base offense that all of them can work off of? And how can we create some plays that are special for Jalen? How can we make some special plays in the case that Joe Flacco needs to play? And he's doing that with his knowledge and background in wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
What we saw last year was so vanilla from our wide receiver core. And I totally understand and acknowledge that they were limited because of the amount of talent that was on the field. Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson getting injured and not being available for basically the whole season.
Yeah.
So you had all these really young players. So I'm not totally knocking Doug when I say that, but there's so much potential. There's so much possibility that could come with these young guys. I saw some sparks from Hightower. I saw some special things from Quiz Watkins. We saw Travis Fulgham almost blow our minds, like, for 4 weeks, and it was incredible.
Yes.
Can he be that guy? Like, we don't even know.
Yes.
But I'm sure, I am certain that a guy like Nick Sirianni will find out. I probably wouldn't even be that confident in Doug Peterson to get that out of a wide receiver. But we saw it happen under his regime, so I shouldn't totally knock him on that either. But if you're able to succeed in a pretty vanilla, tap-down offense, if the offense knows what you're capable of is tailored to, this elusive quarterback, I think that would be a pretty intriguing option. And the guys inside the building will kind of see that this young, energetic person is ready to take on this challenge with them and prove some people wrong, because let's face it, not many people think the Eagles are going to be very special next year. A lot of talk about the rebuild, a lot of talk from me.
Yeah.
They have their backs against the wall going into next season. And again, if he's able to get half the injuries, like cut the injuries in half from what the roster was last year, he has a decent roster to work with. It just got compounded by the injuries last year to the point where there was no point in trying to fight it anymore. And it's an unfortunate state that the Super Bowl quarterback and Super Bowl head coach and all these pieces that were there have slowly fallen to the wayside for us, and are going off to their new future somewhere else. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing Sirianni, and we'll see if that translates. His knowledge and experience at wide receiver is the one thing that most intrigues me about the potential of who he could be as a coach.
Yeah, it will surely be new and different for everybody, which is, hey, people realize this is what the
Maybe
deal
he'll
is.
run the ball.
Hey, maybe. Shocking.
It wouldn't be that bad.
I know, it really wouldn't. All right, Kelly, listen, your intrigue, your insight, and your knowledge was terrific tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for calling. Continued success with your podcast, and
Thank you, sir.
we'll catch up again some point. I know we will.
Absolutely. Good to talk to you.
All right, Kelly, thank you very much for calling and taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, a lot of good Eagles talk from Football Kelly. So glad she could take the time. She's a busy person, and lucky to have her come on. All right, our third guest, Sixers fans, are you ready? We are going to talk about the process. Holy mackerel. Oh my gosh. We're going to talk about the book, Tanking to the Top. Well, have they reached the top yet? The Philadelphia 76ers and the most audacious process in the history of professional sports, a book by Yaron Weitzman. Yaron will be giving us a call in just a moment to talk about this team, not so much now, but when it all started way back when. Yaron, my friend, happy Passover to you.
Thank you. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. So thank you for taking the time to call in. I heard you on WIP. I said I gotta get this guy on because I gotta because you were great. I mean, you were funny. You were really just telling it like it is, which is what I loved when I heard you.
No, thanks.
So here's my first intriguing question for you, and I think Sixers fans are going to want to know because the book's title is "Tanking to the Top." Now, they haven't got there yet, Yaron. What do you mean by tanking to the top?
They haven't got there. Well, they're in first place in the East.
Well, they are.
Does that count?
They are. No, you're right. So all right. So you stop right there for a second. When did you write the book? I mean, has this process? This is the process continuing from what 5-6 years ago, and this is where they are now.
Yeah, that's where it started. It started more than that. 2013, I think, is when it started.
That's a long time ago. Oh my gosh! So it's taking to the top. We like I love the word audacious process. So take us back to the beginning. I mean, you wrote the book. I know you talked to a lot of people. So take us, if you will, back to the beginning and what made this seem so intriguing for you?
So for me, I just thought it was a really interesting look at how the NBA actually works, right? Like what all the different things that go into building a winner and a winning team, and all the different priorities and voices that are involved there that are trying to fight over credit and who does what and strategy, and just how hard it can be to actually build a winning team, right? That one guy can have a strategy like Sam Hinkie, and there's other factors at play there that can get in the way. So I was always fascinated by that and unpacking, and it just always seemed like there was more there. You know, we all kind of knew the story on the surface, but unpacking it a little bit, or I was curious to kind of get beneath the surface there.
Okay, so here's my first question: So back in 2013, were they sitting in a room and said, "Okay, guys, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get as many draft picks as possible. You know how we do that, don't you? Yeah, we lose. I mean, is that as simple as it was?
I mean, I don't know the they, but that was Sam Hinkie's plan for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was the idea. When he came in, he pitched ownership on that. It was basically the idea that looking through NBA history, there's a correlation between good teams and you need top players, and most top players are picked early in the draft, and the best way to get them is to get draft picks. And he figured I'm going to miss some, but I want as many swings of the plate as possible. So I'm going to tank and get as many shots.
Okay, so it's 2021. What was the highest that they've, between 2013 and 2021? It's a long process. I thought it was it initially going to be like, was there a timetable? Is this the timetable now? Because they really haven't gotten to the top until now, and it's 8 years. So I'm trying to figure this all out.
So, I mean, if you're saying the top, they haven't won a championship, and that's obviously the goal. A lot of things go into that. They're relevant in a way that they were not before, right? They're a contender. If they're kind of thinking of a circle of contenders, they're in that. And to me, that's the more important part. From there, these are different things, and if a Kawhi Leonard shot bounces differently or whatever else happens, things, who knows, right? Injuries, all that stuff. But they are in the circle of contention, and they've been there for a few years now. And to me, that makes it, that's the quote unquote top.
Yeah, I know, but the fans, I mean, so what's your take on the react? I mean, there was nobody there for a while. Did people actually know this was going on when it happened? I'm trying to remember way back when. When did that word process came out?
Yeah, they were. Fans were aware. They were aware. Sam Hinkie was pretty upfront with people from the start. He didn't say it's the process. The process came out in a story a couple of years later.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Hinkie never actually said trust the process. That was more, or no, he didn't say that publicly, I should say. I believe he was quoted as saying that to the players often, and that's where it kind of came from. But no, fans were aware, and that's why some were upset, right? Some felt like this is improper. This is not what it's supposed to be. So people are aware. I don't remember, what was the original question? Whether how the fans reacted. There was a divide really. Younger fans, for the most part, and I'm stereotyping here, but younger fans who kind of grew up in the wake of the Moneyball era and fantasy sports and reading cover and their consuming the games differently and reading blogs and things like that, and thinking from the perspective of GMs and are analytically inclined. Many of them were pro it. Maybe more of an old school fan who reads the Inquirer in the morning and just wants to come home after work and watch a game. And like watch a team that's good, right? And they just don't really care if they win a championship. They just want to watch some good basketball every night. That is not a team those are not a group who are going to appreciate that.
Right. Because so again, I want to go back to the beginning. Was there a timetable beginning in 2013? Did they say the powers that be, hey, we're gonna tank and our goal is to get to have a championship team by blank?
Well, no. So Sam Hinkie's whole thing was we're not going to do a timetable because that's how you make bad decisions, right? If you say I have to win by whatever year, and things don't go wrong, then you can start chasing that, and that could be an issue. So you don't, So that it was never. I mean, it was never something that could be stated like that, and that specifically.
Okay, so here is my other question. You saw that the Eagles put in their third string quarterback at the end of the season, right? To, quote, lose the game. Very blatant. They didn't take any crap from the NFL, as far as I can remember. They was, okay, whatever, you put your third string quarterback in. Other teams were pissed, like the Giants, and of course we said, screw you, Giants fans, the hell with you, who cares about you? But in the NBA as a whole, is there history? I don't remember because was not a huge basketball fan. I was a big fan in the late '60s and early '70s. Okay, watching the Knicks in New York. Did this tanking thing to get draft picks? I mean, we always knew this was the way. I knew that this is the way you got good picks, right? You had a bad season, and you ended up having to get draft picks. I mean, did the Jets do that this past year? I don't know, maybe. But were the NBA honchos, the guys that sit in New York, saying, "What the hell are they doing?" Or are they okay with this? Obviously, they're okay with it. They didn't hear anything about it. But I'm curious.
No, the NBA was not happy with it, right?
Okay.
Sports is a funny thing where you're competitors, but you're also partners. I mean, they've changed the lottery odds, and they've changed the lottery odds in recent years to change it to take away some of the incentive to tank. I forget the numbers exactly. So they've done that. They even more so. They had a hand in introducing Josh Harris, a team owner, to facilitating the removal or the ousting of Sam Hinkie, basically helping push him out. They wanted someone else brought in. So no, they were not okay with it.
Yeah. So, do you have information in the book that talks about? Because I'm curious to know. Not that you're going to want to give stuff away, obviously, but what ramifications did the NBA? What kind of communications did the NBA have with the Sixers when all this is going down?
I mean, so during down, I don't have specific communication.
Right.
Like I said, I know, they were upset with some of the things that are going on. They communicated to the Sixers ownership many times. And again, they facilitated the phone call between Josh Harris and Jerry Colangelo, the longtime NBA executive, who was brought in basically to replace Sam Hinkie. And that was that was an introduction that was made by the NBA.
Oh, really? Very interesting. Very interesting. So, Sam Hinkie's gone. You got who's reaping the benefits right now. I just have a hard time getting my head around, and I think you need to help me with this. That this right now where they're at was a result. Are you telling me now, in 2021, where the Sixers are in first place, that this is a result of 2013 when, quote, the process started?
I mean, I would say so. The two best players are Ben Simmons and, more importantly, Joel Embiid. And they.
But when did they get them? When did they get those guys? How long have they?
Embiid was 2015. That was the Sam Hinkie draft, and Joel Embiid, or was maybe 2014, and that was Embiid. And Simmons was 2017. That was a few months after Hinkie was ousted, but they had the number one pick because of the team Ncaa had built. So those are the key guys, and Embiid specifically, and Embiid's a result of that.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you're helping me understand a little bit. All right, well, okay, I'm getting it now. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you.
My
for
pleasure.
That. I mean, so what else? What else can we look forward to in not giving stuff away about in the book? What's a couple of things that you can share that won't give the book away? I mean, you're talking about the process. What else is in that thing?
Yeah, I think it's one. If you're an NBA fan, it's going to give you a good look about how the NBA actually works behind closed doors. What leads to the product we see on the court. So some stuff about what happened with Markelle Fultz. The true story of his summer of yips. How Brian Colangelo was actually partly played a role, even though he was out by then. The Jimmy Butler trade and Jimmy Butler being traded there. Mm-hmm. Some of the issues that led to Brett Brown's firing and where some things went wrong. A bunch of things like that if you're interested in this, I think you'll find interesting.
Yeah, so you go into all that, obviously more recent stuff, which is pretty cool. Let's go to present day. Your thoughts on Morey and Doc Rivers?
They've been great so far, I think. For me to, who am I to say, how can you have any issue, right?
Right, exactly.
They've been great. I mean, the team's in first place. They're set up really well. I think their success over the next few years, this is not like a hot take or secret. It's going to come down to Joel Embiid's ability to stay healthy and perform at a high level. Mm-hmm. But they're clearly recognizing to put shooters around him, and they're everyone on the roster is having their best season of their career. So you got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, and he's worked with these guys. Obviously, Doc has been there before. He knows what it takes. What were your thoughts? They draft Ben, and everybody's all excited, and then Ben doesn't shoot. And they said, well, I'm working on it, and you hear all these different thoughts, and he's out in the summer, he's working with somebody, he's in a gym, and he's making shots, he's making 20-foot shots, he's making 3-pointers, and then to come to a game, and I guess this was maybe 2018. 19 nothing. But is that something that Doc? To me, it's crazy. Initially thinking that one of your best players can't take an outside shot or shoot or shoot a 3 or whether even a 20-footer. But I guess that's okay for the way this team is playing, isn't it, right now?
I mean, it's okay. It's not ideal. It's not their ideal. It just is right now, right? And so it's a problem, and the playoffs, it could be a problem for sure. But in the meantime, Ben Simmons, he might be the defensive player of the year this year. He creates a lot of points in transition. He's obviously excellent in almost every single thing. Except shooting threes. So it's a problem. They have to figure out how to manufacture a tournament, or he has to figure out how to make himself a weapon in the half court and come second round of the playoffs and third rounds and more if they keep advancing. Right. He has historically struggled in those situations, but they have more shooting around them too. So it's going to be interesting to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Again, Doc's a smart guy. We know that. They didn't get this way on their own. He's led them and got to know them. George Hill, this new pickup, right? Give me your thoughts.
They're great. They gave up nothing, and he's a knockdown shooter who is a really solid defender. That's exactly what they need, right? For no cost, it's an ideal guy to pair around their team. So it's a good move. All upside, and it's going to solidify them.
Yeah, I mean that's what everybody was saying. A couple 3 weeks ago, way before the draft, a month ago. They think they need to get another outside shooter to complement, to soften that middle a little bit, to open some things up, which he's going to bring to the forefront here. What's the timetable for Embiid? Do we know?
This Doc Rivers has been hinting this week or give or take, or maybe early next week. I expect them to be pretty conservative with him.
Because if they still got a long way to go. I mean, I was looking at the schedule. I didn't realize how many more games they have to play.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really it's starting late and going late, which is fine. They're going to play. Basketball fans love it. but I hadn't looked real specifically about the season. So yeah, so the load management issue is going to stay with him, with Embiid, and what do you? I don't see anybody except, that Eastern Conference Final is going to be interesting, because I see them getting to the final.
You over the Nets, huh? You're writing off the Nets.
I'm not, but I mean that's what's going to be tough. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Very much so.
It's going to be, have they beat them and have they beat Utah? So there is a possibility, right? It's there. It's out there. They just have to play consistent, really good basketball. But we'll see. It's a long season still a long time to go. But what are your thoughts?
I would say the Nets would be the ones I'd be concerned about them for sure.
Well, yeah, concerned. 7-game series. It's going
to me, they're you have to match their firepower. I'd say they're the favorites. You would need Embiid to average like 40 points a game, I think, which may be good again. But I would say the Nets. The Nets are pretty stacked.
Wow. Okay, well that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting because I was thinking that. I mean, yes, are the Nets a terrific team? Absolutely, but I think it's a good matchup, and I'm looking forward to see it when that happens, which is great. Anybody else that you know of gone through this quote process, this tanking, that you bring it up at all in the book about another team that has done this in the past?
I mean, teams have tanked, but not to this extent, right? No one ever had the plan to be this long and to be this blatant with it.
Right, exactly. And so this is really, like you said in the title of the book, the most audacious process in the history. It's been done before, but not to this level.
Exactly.
Wow. Yaron, the book is out, yes?
Yes.
And where can people get it? Anywhere.
Available, wherever books are sold, in hardcover or paperback as well. So, yeah.
Oh, it's in paperback now, too? Oh,
correct.
Nice. Terrific. Well, that's great. All right, Yaron, listen. I appreciate you calling.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Pleasure talking to you, giving us your insight on the book about tanking to the top, the Philadelphia 76ers, and the most audacious process in the history of professional sports, written by Yaron Weitzman. Yaron, thank you.
Have a good night.
I appreciate it. Take care.
My pleasure. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, I was having a hard time dealing with it and understanding it. Obviously, didn't pay as much attention to it as I have baseball and hockey, but I didn't realize that current day went all the way back to 2013 with this process. So get the book if you're interested. Get that book. Look up by author Yaron Weitzman, Weitzman. Follow Yaron on Twitter at YARON WEITZMAN. All right, a couple of quick updates here. The question about will USC or UCLA be able to keep up with Gonzaga and or Michigan? Right now, the answer is no. Gonzaga 29, USC 15. 7:48 to go in the first half. My pool, I have Gonzaga, Michigan. Who do I have? Oh my gosh, I forgot. Who do I have? I know I don't have USC or UCLA. So that's, let me see what I got here. We're going to check right now. Let's see. And I have Baylor. Yes, I have Baylor. That Baylor-Houston game is going to be good. Wow. That's Saturday, no time yet for that Baylor-Houston game. Final Four. Tonight we'll get the other two teams in the Final Four, which is very, very exciting. People's brackets are coming to an end. It'll be good. All right, let's look at some scores real quick before we give some information about upcoming shows and tomorrow with Captain Lou's show. Let's see. Sixers play at Denver tonight, 9 o'clock on NBA TV. Denver, I don't follow it that much. They're 28-18. That could be a good matchup for them. Let's see. Phoenix is playing at home against the Atlanta Hawks. And in progress, Charlotte Hornets beating that Washington basketball team, the Wizards, 50-39, 6:02 left in the second quarter. All right. So, let's go to hockey real quick and give you a little update on hockey. Because that is also playing, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. My Rangers are down 2-1 to the Capitals. Devils are beating the Bruins 2-1, and the first Columbus Blue Jackets, Tampa Bay Rays 0s. Florida Panthers 3, Detroit nothing into the first. Montreal 3, Edmonton nothing into the first. And Blackhawks and Hurricane are scoreless with 13:59 left in the first period. All right. So let me go over a couple of things with you before we finish tonight. Like I said, next week's show is full of diverse topics, which I will tell you about right now. We have on the first Tuesday in April, which will be the day after my first game at Citizens Bank Park watching the Phillies in a long time, as many of you are in the same boat. So Cam Perone wrote a book. He, young guy, he'll be coming on to talk about his book he wrote about meeting Negro League players, Negro League baseball players. So that's going to be interesting. We'll go through the process with him. How did he get involved with all that? Why did he get involved? Very, very interesting and intriguing topic. Cam will be followed by author Eric Sherman. Eric, terrific author, written many a baseball book. He wrote one about After the Miracle, about the 1969 Mets and how they had a reunion, and several of them, along with Eric, went to visit Tom Seaver in California, visited him at his vineyards, and they were all able to reminisce about those that 69 season, which was just awesome. So he's written a new book about the, and he also wrote a book about the 86 Mets and the team that won the World Series, which I'm reading now. And subsequently, he has written a book and met with many players from the 1986 Boston Red Sox and gotten their perspectives on the loss of the World Series to the New York Mets that year. So looking forward to having Eric on next week's show. And then actor, Philadelphia Phillies superfan, baseball geek, she calls herself, Ellen Adair. Ellen will be with us to talk Phillies, obviously. I'll share my first experience at the ballpark with her, find out if she's coming into town at all, to talk about her favorite team also. So that'll be fun. The following week, it's April the 13th, I have, those of you who are into fishing and those who watch Wicked Tuna, I have Captain Bob coming on from Wicked Tuna on April the 13th, followed by two baseball or sports artists, I will say. Lauren Taylor, who has a tremendous story about herself and her unbelievable talent in sports art, baseball art, and she is now part of Project 70, Topps Project 70, where she and many other artists are designing unique baseball cards in their own style. So Lauren will be on talking about that. And then Brian Oakes. Brian is a painter, and Brian does stadium prints, stadium painting. Stadiums, ballparks, whatever. Go find him on Twitter at Brian Oakes, BrianOakes. look at his stuff. He'll be on the 13th. Lauren Taylor, you can find her at LT, which stands for Lauren Taylor, LT Illustrations. You can find her on Twitter there. And I believe on her website, for her website, it's ltillustrations.com. And then April the 20th, we continue with a little bit more of our MLB Roundup. We've got the gentleman from Reviewing the Brew, talking about the Brewers. I also made contact with I must check it out. A woman who will be reporting on the Cardinals, and her name is Katie Wu. Katie will be on sometime, I'm hoping on that day in April, to give her update on the Cardinals. And probably that night I will be playing the Mark Zumoff interview that I had with him before I left on vacation last week, as he gives a little bit of tidbits of information about the Philadelphia 76ers. Future interview, Malika Underwood, who wrote a book and illustrated by Ncaa for children, a book about being dreaming to be something you want to be as a girl. Book is called Birdie Can Too. So that's the lineup for the next several weeks. A good group of folks. Tomorrow night on the Captain Lou Extravaganza, Captain Lou is reviewing on 12 Ounce Sports Network on Zingo Channel 761. We're doing an MLB Roundup. I will be talking, the Burn, with Mitch Bernstein, will be talking with Lou about the National League East and the American League East. So I'll be giving some information about that. Feel free. Lou is on tomorrow, I believe, from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Tomorrow evening, 8 to 9:30 Eastern Time, talking about Major League Baseball opening day in less than 48 hours. Yes, it is. Can't wait to get to the ballpark. Can't wait to see a home run. Get that ball hit some bombs out of the ballpark. Get some food. Be there, even masked. It'll be fun, and we will be in pods of 2. My daughter and I. It'll be fun. It'll be not cold, which is awesome in April. So I'm looking forward to that. And that is going to be it for me, folks. I want to thank my guests for coming on this evening. Rick Soisson from the People's News. And we talked Phillies. And Football Kelly, her podcast at Eagles Brawl. We talked a lot about the Philadelphia Eagles, and just finishing up with Yaron Weitzman and his book about the Sixers, how they tanked beginning in 2013 to the top. They're at the top right now. We'll see how long that lasts. Pick up his book anywhere books are sold. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Appreciate my folks who listen, reaching out to those folks on Twitter. Appreciate you retweeting and liking the tweets. This day and age, this is how we do things, and we really appreciate it. All right, folks, that's it for me for now. The Burn with Mitch on 12 Ounce Sports Network, signing off on this Tuesday, March the 30th. Have a great week. We will talk to you next week, the first week in April, the first Tuesday in April, after Monday Night Baseball. We'll talk to you then.